everything had stuck to the shelves, everything. Couldn't move one bottle off the shelves. So we were there with screwdrivers, jemmying it all off, and this man walked in a pinstripe suit, American, and we had a piece in the Wall Street Journal as well, hadn't we? It was incredible. And he walked in and he said, "Are you Jo Malone?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I've been instructed by my client to come and buy your company." I'd not been opened an hour. And he offered me $1 million for my company. And I remember standing there thinking, "Oh, I could buy a bed." Because we had a piece of foam that we used to roll out and sleep on every night, and then we'd roll it away every morning and transfer the little flat into a shop. And I just stood there, and it's that moment where I thought, if I do this, if I sell this right now, I'll rob myself of an adventure. And so I said, "No, thank you." And I never saw him again.
Well, thank goodness you did, because there were a lot of fragrances that came after that. And then, the company grew and grew. And, how did, can you remember some of the sort of highs and lows along that journey of...
I think any journey, when you're building something, and an entrepreneur, you know what? They're not the smartest people or the wisest or the richest. They just have courage, and they put one foot in front of the other every day. And, things happen to us. They throw us off track, but you must always keep your mind fixed on that goal. No matter what happens, you stand up, you dust yourself off, and you keep on heading towards. So there were lots of amazing moments. The first, I think one of them was Christmas Eve, and it was our first year. And I can't work any computer, I still can't switch them on. I certainly couldn't work the tills in the shop, but I could work out how much we'd made in the day. So it's Christmas Eve, Gary and I were in the shop, and it was 2:00, and of course it was all men banging on the door, you can imagine. So we're saying, "I need a Jo Malone, bar or whatever." And I did my calculations, and at 2:00 on Christmas Eve, we were £364 short of our first million. Wow. And it was amazing, just incredible. So we opened the door and we said we weren't going to shut the door until we hit that 1 million on Christmas Eve. I know, amazing. And it was.
Did you like it? Did you do it?
The man that hit us over the million, he came in and he said, "Can I have the cheapest thing you've got?" I know him today as well. And it was an $8.95 shower gel, and I gave it to him, and then I handed him a bottle of Dom Perignon champagne, and he said, "Jo Malone, if you treat everyone like that, you'll never make a successful business." How wrong was he? But that was a real high. The low moments were, as you start to take a brand around the world, you have this little pool of money and it gets smaller and smaller, and there were some really tight corners we got ourselves into with IP, intellectual property, trademarks, because you have to register your trademark all the way around the world, and it's the minute you see your business taking off, if you don't keep up with that, you can be prevented from trading in a new territory or country. So it was tough, and Gary and I had to learn on our feet, made lots of mistakes, but we were never frightened to put our hands up and say, "Can someone help here? We don't understand this." One of the most amazing women was a woman called Rosemary Bravo. And Rosemary Bravo was, at the time, she was head of Saks, the department store in New York. She then went on to recreate and find the amazing Christopher Bailey and recreate Burberry. She's an amazing woman. But we walked into this meeting hoping to sell in Saks, and Gary, to my horror, turned around and said, Can you explain how the rest of America works with Neiman Marcus, who were their rival?" And bless her heart, that woman made a cup of coffee for us both, sat with Gary on the floor, put a huge map of the United States, and taught us where in every country, in every state, what was the best place. And because of that, we never made a mistake in our distribution in America. Very gracious of her and amazing.
That's good.
And the other thing that I think that I always really associate with you and all the things you've done is you're all about the details. So, the other thing that was different, I think, was that, at the time when it was all those big blockbuster fragrances, perfume sort of lost its specialness a bit. Whereas with you, when you bought something, it came in the beautiful cream and black box, which we all love, which, to me, I was thinking today, it was like the sort of blue Tiffany box, wasn't it? Or the orange Hermes box. It was like, but there's always a ribbon. And even if you pull things in to shoot for the magazine, where you just get things like stuffed in a carrier bag, it would be in the box with the ribbon, and you know, it would feel really special. And I think that's something that, you know, perfume is a really important part of perfume.
Well, it's what you see, isn't it? It's the thing that seduces the eye and draws you in, and it's the thing that you gain confidence in as well when you're holding a bag, you know, and you know, coming back and creating a brand again, and everybody remembering you for something that's so iconic. It's tough doing a packaging, you know, and you sometimes don't get it right. And you know, when I created the second brand, I got it really wrong in the first year of its life, and you have to keep at it, because the packaging is your advertising, it's your marketing, it's your love letter to the world saying, this is who I am, you can trust me.
And then, after this amazing journey, you decided to sell the brand.
I sold the brand because, as I said, that we were rolling out around the world and it was getting tighter and tighter. And what was happening was success was starting to backfire. So we couldn't do all the things. And I thought, you know, I was looking for 3 things. And it's really important if you have a company and you want to be acquired, you've got to really, really work out what it is you want. And I wanted money, deep pockets, I needed funding. I needed distribution, so I needed somebody that understood the rest of the world. But more importantly, I needed heart. I needed someone that really understood me and the cosmetic industry. So when I met the amazing Leonard Lauder that morning, I met this man, had breakfast with him, and you know, the courting process began. But I knew Estee Lauder were absolutely there, had all those 3 things. And when I sold the brand, about 18 months later, after toing and froing, I thought I was going to stay with it forever. So when I sold it, it was like, wow, how amazing. I'll travel around the world. I'll carry on doing everything that I love to do. So when I sold it, I never intended to walk away. But life doesn't always deal you the cards that you think you should have, and it certainly didn't me. But at the time when I sold it, I intended to stay forever.
And one thing I always wanted to ask you was, what does that feel like when your name sort of isn't your name anymore, and you walk past the shop and there's something there that you haven't created but it's got your name on it?
Slightly schizophrenic, yeah. I live just around the corner from Sloane Street, but at the same time I sold that business. You know, it belongs to them. I can't. There's no point sitting and crying and moaning about something that changed my life and saved my life. So, you know, it's part and parcel of the whole thing. I don't create for the brand any longer, and I'm not a consumer of the brand. But it doesn't stop me loving it, because it was my best friend for a very long time. Wow. And I am not. I refuse to, you know, somebody said to me, "I'm sure you compete against your own brand." I don't compete. I'm the mother of both. I created both, but one was my life 20 years ago, and Jo Loves is where I am today. So it's a completely natural thing, and I'm proud. When we were in, Charlotte and I were in Dubai last week, it was so sweet. There we were doing a radio show, and then suddenly all these people started to run forward, and there were 2 girls with Jo Malone pinnies on, weren't there? And they just came up and they said, "Please, Jo, can we just have a photo?" And I felt really humbled, and all they wanted to do was to have a photo and touch and ask a question of the woman that had started the brand that they were working for. So no, I don't have any animosity at all.
In terms of business, though, when you're, you know, talking to people or mentoring people, you know, if somebody was starting their own brand, do you sort of say to them, think really carefully about whether you want to use your name or whether you want to think of a different company name?
That's a great question. I don't mentor, by the way. I'm the worst mentor in the world because I'm a complete control freak, so I take over. So I don't do that. But yes, you know, but your name is kind of, it gives it authenticity, and it says, this is who I am, this is Jo. So, but if you are going to use your name, you do have to think about the consequences of if you sell your brand and you don't stay with it, and you know, and some people are very happy with that situation, but your name is definitely your name. But if it hadn't been Jo Malone, nobody may have bought it. So what's the point keep, you know, looking back and saying, what if I did it? And I don't regret it at all.
And so after that, you had a 5-year hiatus from the beauty industry, which was sort of enforced, which must have been a kind of double-edged sword in a way, because you had time to do other things, but equally as somebody who's kind of brimming with ideas, many of them fragrance-based, it must have been, was it frustrating as well?
Oh, I was awful. I was terrible to live with. So I think what's important to understand why I left, though. But I didn't leave just because it was a business. I was diagnosed with cancer 3 years into my deal with Lauder, and I was given 9 months to live. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I took a year out, I went to New York, and I was one of the very first women to take chemotherapy every 5 days. So I spent a whole year fighting for my life. And, thank God I came through the other end and am completely all clear, so it worked. But it changed me. And I remember standing in Madison Avenue in a little store, opening it, and just thinking, you don't belong here anymore. My sense of smell had been affected really powerfully from the chemotherapy. And I felt I didn't want to harm the brand in any way, and I just felt I didn't belong there anymore. And I've never had a job in my life. I've never gone to work. I love what I do. I consume every hour of every day with what I do. So that's why I decided to leave, but never make a life-changing decision on a bad day, ever. Because the landscape of your life can change so dramatically that a very short space moving on, you look and you think, oh, what did I do? And that's exactly what I did. I made the wrong call at the wrong time. But we'd instructed the lawyers, the contracts were drawn up, all the contracts were signed. I remember the very last day standing in Sloane Street in Jo Malone, and I was putting the bath bottles on the shelf for the last time. And I knew I'd made the biggest mistake of my life, and there was no way of going back. And I wanted to scream out saying, oh, please somebody ask me to stay. Like, if somebody had said, I would have stayed forever and never gone, but no one did, because no one knew. So I left, and I had the 5-year, rightly so, when you sell a brand for a lot of money, you can't enter or start up another business, and I never thought I would ever come back, never say never, come back into the cosmetic industry, ever in my life. But that first week of not creating, I was so unhappy, and I realised that it was my best friend, and never ever talking to my best friend again was just excruciating. And so those 5 years were far worse than fighting cancer. And I know that sounds weird, but I lost my identity. I didn't know who I was, what was my purpose. I tried all kinds of things. I sat down to write a CV out, and it looked so terrible. I just, who's going to give me a job? No qualifications, left school at 15, built a global brand, that was it. There was nothing in between. Always making fragrance. And it's like, who am I? Where are you? And I remember walking through Harrods one day, the cosmetic hall, and I stopped at a counter, it was so ridiculous, and I lifted the lid off a face cream, and I sniffed it, and I burst into tears. And it was like, all I want to do is go back, and I can't. And sometimes in life we make the wrong call, but it doesn't mean to say you can't make it right, and you don't come back again, and you think, okay, what is it I really want? Who am I really? What makes me happy? And so Charlotte and I were making Charlotte's with me a long time, she's like my best friend. 17 years we worked together. And we were making a television show together for BBC One called High Street Dreams, and I was standing in a garden shed filling bottles of chilli sauce, very glam, with Wellington boots and a hairnet, and it was filling the bottles. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to give it one more try. And if I fail, at least I get up, and I gave it a go. And so I made the decision that day, and 7 days later we were back round a kitchen table, figuring out how we were going to start from scratch, and that's exactly what we did.
And then Jo Loves was born.
She was, yeah.
Did everybody know that Jo was now with Jo Loves and not Jo Malone? I remember.
But I'm still Jo Malone.
But she's still. I remember going to Selfridges when it started.
It was an awful moment.
And was it?
Yeah.
I remember going up to smell them, and this lady next to me saying, "Who is Jo?" And me going, "It's Jo Malone." Oh. Really indignantly.
Yeah, that was one. I was desperate to run back in, and lovely Jane DeMuro from Selfridges gave us an amazing opportunity to put up a pop-up in Selfridges. But I got all the packaging wrong. I did it all. It was all red and black. Why? And I remember that. So. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I did. I was like, what have I done? What have I done? So we built the Jo Love store overnight. We stayed in the Selfridges all night long, which is really weird, being in the store, locked in all overnight.
Great.
It was really
Locked in Selfridges.
It was really weird. And I remember going down the escalators, and as I came back up, I was facing Jo Malone, the cream and black box. And I wanted to go up and go and smell lime basillamine and go, it's all right, I'm here. And then I looked at Jo Love's, which is this horrible red box, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? And it was awful, and I knew it was a mistake, but there was nothing I could do, and I had to go through the process. I mean, now I'm really happy, and we've rebranded and got it all right. But again, you know what? Mistakes happen. And it doesn't stop you fulfilling your dreams and walking towards your ultimate goal. Sometimes you just have to laugh at yourself and realise that you've got it wrong.
And also, I think you have those instincts and you're very definite about, you were like, it's not right. And the same thing happened, didn't it, with Pomelo? That was your, that's your,
baby.
Your baby
Yeah,
in Jo Love's.
So Pomelo was the first. So after not creating fragrance for 5 years, I thought, oh, I'll sit back down and it'll all come back naturally. And it didn't. I could create fragrance, but nothing resembled my signature, which I know that is a really powerful.
And had your sense of smell completely come back at this point from?
Yeah, it had completely come back, and it was very, very powerful. But I couldn't lock notes together. I couldn't do it like I can do now. So Pomelo was one of those, and I suffer hugely from anxiety and panic attacks as well, being very creative. So I was going through a time where I just didn't know where I was coming or going. I wanted to create a brand, I couldn't create fragrance. So my husband took us away on holiday to this beautiful little place called Parrot Key in the Turks and Caicos. And every morning I would get up and I'd have the same routine. I'd walk down the beach and come back and try and find creativity. And so one morning I'm walking down there thinking, I'm never going to create fragrance again. Why can't I create? Why can't I create? And a terrible moment. And as I walked down the beach, I saw this stingray, baby stingray, and she was just swimming by the side of me. And when I stopped walking, she stopped swimming. And it was just so beautiful. And then I carried on walking, and she swam all the way down to the end of the beach. And it was as though life was saying, you don't own creativity, but she will mimic you. And she will stand, and it's right there. You could create the most brilliant fragrance right now, look up. And I looked up, and I captured everything I saw in a single note, from the white rolled towels, to the fizzy water, to the sand dollars in the sand, to the stingray, to the blue skies, to my flip-flop, everything. And Pomelo is the result of that. And
that's the one that you wear, isn't it?
I wear it every day in my house. All our wooden floors are washed with it every day. For me, it's the scent of hope, a second chance. The book is scented with it. A dog gets washed in it because she rolls in disgusting things in the bath. But it just said, you can do it, Jo. And sometimes, that feeling where you lose who you are, you lose your creativity, and you think, how do I get it back? And you fight for so long to try and get it, but it's standing right beside you. It'll just mimic your imagination. It'll manifest, it will reflect what you're feeling and your emotions, but be true to it and don't try and own it.
Such good advice. Shortly, I really want to take some questions from the audience. I'm sure everyone's got questions, but I also really wanted to ask you about the scented candles in Jo Love's, because they're so amazing, and I always think, I just don't know people, and then I tell people about the layered candle, and they're like, no way, that's amazing. So could you just tell us a bit about them and where the idea came from?
I always want to do something different, and so the layered candle you're talking about is the story of fragrance. So we've just launched one at the minute, which is Neroli Blossom, and it has 3 layers in it, and they burn one from another. But as the layer leaves and goes to the next one, you feel it almost leaving the room, and the next one enters. So it's Neroli Blossom, lime, and and petitgrain, thank you, Charlotte. And petitgrain, so you feel it literally telling you the story of grass standing in that garden. So each one is a story. And the shot candles, so we have a candle cocktail bar where you come and make, you create with me, so we create candles together. And it's a hollowed out candle, so it's a base of one fragrance, and you choose a shot just like you would if you were in a cocktail bar. And you choose the shot, so you might have a lemongrass with a petitgrain, or you might have fig trees with log fires. So you create these stories for yourself with the candles. It's
the most brilliant fun to go and do as well. I really recommend it. Okay, so finally, is there anything left that you'd love to achieve? I know the answer is going to be yes, and you probably won't tell us what they are.
No, I will tell you. I started the beginning of this year. Last year, I started to run a business, and I became very unhappy, and I stopped creating. And the beginning of this year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to go back to what I really love, because that's what I'm really good at. And I decided on 4 life adventures this year, of which the medical dog detection, sitting in the desert last week, listening to poetry under the stars in Dubai, was another amazing adventure. I'm going to glass blow. I want to see if I can blow glass like Jewellery. Does anyone know who Jewellery is? Yeah, amazing artist. And I want to see if I can do that. And my 4th one, I don't know yet, so if you've got any ideas.
It's only March, you've got time.
But just, I want to take Jo Loves around the world. We'll open in new territories next year. We're all, getting ready for that. We have a paradigm shift, I believe, in fragrance coming up, launching in September, which is a really exciting. So we will change the way you wear fragrance completely. So you'll no longer pick up a bottle and squirt. You're going to pick up a brush and paint yourselves.
Oh. Tell me about the brush.
So it's a magical moment. Everybody in their life hopes that maybe there is something. I mean, Steve Jobs did it with the phone. That's a paradigm shift. He changed the way we did it. So this is. Can you hold my microphone? So So I want you to look at your body like it's a canvas, just like you're painting. So just think of your body as a canvas. So what you'll do is you'll take can you take your dress off? Okay, here we go. So we're going to do this one. We're going to do white rose and lemon leaf. So you find the canvas first of all, and then you take one of these paintbrushes. Really, really simple. And you start to paint it all into your body. And what it does is it kicks all of the spirit off and it pushes it right into the skin. So you put it onto your body. And then the genius about it is you take another fragrance onto some tiny paintbrushes and you start to paint yourself with fragrance. So imagine if you were a bride, you take a little bit of orange blossom around your neck, but then you take some jasmine and you skirt it over the back of your back. Mm-hmm. So you use fragrance exactly like you would colour or music, but you become the artist, so you decide how you're going to smell. And honestly, it is one of the most exciting chapters that I've ever lived, of thinking of all of the possibilities. So the other day I was creating fragrance pinstripe suits. So I was taking a tiny little bit of eucalyptus and cedar and I was just running it down an ebony wood base. And it's just endless and endless and endless. So that's what we launched in September. You've all got brushes, by the way, tonight to go away with, so that you can all paint yourself. And it's called Paint a Note, hashtag Paint a Note. And just tell us what you've painted yourself with, what note you've done, and we can share all these kind of wonderful creative stories.
Oh, Jo, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been such a pleasure and such an inspiration, and not nearly as scary being painted as I thought it was going to be. So just before I take any questions, Jo Malone, everyone. Does anyone have a question? Here's one. So the question was, has Jo's amazing sense of smell helped her in some of those difficult times that she talked about?
I think just being able to create and do something useful. I believe every single person has something unbelievable about them. And we were created to be creative people. So we might not all be entrepreneurs and build businesses, but we can all do something. Everyone in this room has something that is so unique to them. And when you find that thing, that's the thing that really rocks your boat and makes you really happy. So during those times, but I couldn't create fragrance when I was on chemo for a year, and I was just half a person. I knew that. So I think creating fragrance for me is very much who I am. I love it. I love the artistry. I love pushing those boundaries. I mean, today, if you could have seen the things I was creating we have a fragrance tapas bar for your nose in the shop in Elizabeth Street, and I was creating new concepts of tapas with chocolate fountains and all kinds of different things. And it makes me fulfilled. I feel fulfilled, I feel happy, I feel useful as well. I feel what I'm doing is exciting. So I think my sense of smell always takes me back. I can unlock memories. See, I'm smelling your dress now. I can smell bitter cornflower with jasmine grass. So the colour, it's sort of it's so real to me when it happens. But it unlocks memories. So they're like keys in a door for me. So as I can smell something and it'll unlock the memory, and I can recall everything. From if you were at a dinner, what everyone was wearing, what was on the table, simply from the smell. It just literally unlocks the whole memory for me. So if you took my sense of smell away, I'd be half a person. Well, not even a half a person. What's your gift?
Definitely not yours. But I'm pleased with the way it's
Any more questions?
my gift is XL, which is very different.
We all need people like you.
But I was going to say, creating seems to be an experience for you, and does that affect your taste, and is there something that you taste that really ties in and marries to your smell and that creative spirit?
Oh, I love that question too. So I love sitting at a bar, like a little tapas bar or a bar, and I was sitting in New York once, and I was watching the cocktail guy behind them making cocktails, and I was watching him taking vodka and making a cosmopolitan or a martini or a sea breeze, and I said, I wonder if I could do that with fragrances. I wonder if I could take something, and he started to use a mango, and I created this mango note based upon that whole moment, and I put a shot of lime, Thai lime over one, a shot of oud over the other. So I created fragrances in exactly the same way that he was creating cocktails. So my sense of taste, I love food, and I think if I didn't do fragrance, I would definitely become involved in food. And we're working on a couple of projects at the moment where I'm starting to see if I can take my sense of smell and push it into my sense of taste. I also love wine, who doesn't? So I'd love one day to own a vineyard. That would be one of my big dreams. I don't know whether I'll ever do that. But yeah, my sense of taste I'm starting to learn to really appreciate it.
I guess I'm trying to start a business, and what I'm struggling with is getting it right and getting on with it. So you're talking about being patient, but at the same time you just need to sometimes make the mistakes and then just solve them after. So you're talking about packaging. What I'm struggling with is the packaging, but if I just do something that's not perfect, then I might be able to then just crack on with my business as opposed to pausing for weeks and months on end just about one thing. So I just wanted to see your advice on that.
Okay, well, just join us all because we all make mistakes. There's not one perfect entrepreneur I know that doesn't, but I think the key is get on with it. You know what, just pick yourself up. Nothing is so beyond, even if you I got the packaging really wrong, but I'm just about to, launch in 3 territories across the world, so I eventually got it right. I think the important thing is sometimes we can overthink things, And we think we need to be in a perfect position to move forward. That's not the case. Often some of the best products in the world are half designed or half packaged. And by the time it reaches that bigger market, I would say just get on and do it. And always know that packaging also, you tweak it all the way through its life. If you looked at the tomato ketchup label, for instance, from day one to what it is today, it's completely different. So you can evolve and you can change the colour of your box or do something that is, different. If you have an icon like a Nike swoosh or whatever, you have to make sure that that's the one that you want, because you need to register that kind of logo. So make sure that's right. But try some different things. Get out there. The thing that stops us is the fear of failing. But failure is going to happen, I'm going to tell you that right now, but it can make you, not break you. Yeah. Failure is such an important part, because sometimes it's not just about getting up and fighting again, it's about getting up and looking in a different direction. And often that will take us, so I would say get up and try. What's your business?
Just white shirts for women.
Love white shirts.
White shirt.
Lovely. Write all the things that you love. What texture do you love? What colours do you love? What do you want somebody to feel when they get one of your products? What's the bag? And remember that the bag, the logo of your bag, is really important because it's free advertising. So one of the things we did in the very beginning with Jo Malone, we had no money in New York for advertising. So my husband said to me, "What are we going to do?" And I said, "What have we got?" And he said, 1,000 bags. And we walked around New York with 100 people with empty bags for six weeks. So your packaging is really important when you're trying to get that message out there. But you have to be creative with what you've got, especially when you're an entrepreneur starting out.
I just want to say, the red and black box, I still have.
It's vintage.
Because I remember getting it at an event, and I was like, Jo Malone. I was a lot younger then, but it was like my first amazing product perfume.
Which one was it? Pomelo.
Pomelo. And I'm wearing it tonight, and I can't smell it because I've got a terrible cold. But I just remember that whole evening, and I checked the price, and I was like, gosh, this is going to be stuck with me for life now. So I kept the box.
Oh, keep it.
Yeah, and like you say, I too use smell to relate to times in my life, and like someone walked past me and I smelled that perfume, and I was like, I remember that one, and it'll be like Hugo Boss Deep Red, and I was like, oh, I'm 18.
Or first kiss, always stay.
But no, I kept that box and the memories. And
It's important that as well. It's like a photographic album for your nose, isn't it? It takes you back to that moment. I've had many times where I recognise when you've created something, it stays with you. I don't really run after people up the street, but there have been moments. So I think when Pomelo first had its outing, and I had 100 bottles, and I was walking my dog one morning, and suddenly this beautiful woman walked past, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's wearing Pomelo. And I had to say something because it wasn't in the shops or anything, so I went up and I said, excuse me, but are you wearing Pomelo? She looked at me as though I was crazy. And I went, no, I'm Jo. And of course I had no makeup on, my baseball cap on, I didn't look at all. And she was just she said, oh, someone's just given that to me, it's the most amazing smell. But there's something about Pomelo, it's so fragile and yet it's so strong, it's incredible. So, yeah, that was great. But many times I've got onto planes. At the minute we're on Emirates airline. We're on their duty free. So I walk through and I can smell Pomelo literally everywhere, all up and down the aisles. And I feel so proud, to have got a second job. I was 50 years old when I started a second business, and I really doubted myself. And yet, we achieved it with an amazing team as well. And Leanne.
Okay, well,
Yeah, go. Yeah.
She's desperate.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask, when, do you know is the right time to expand abroad? Because, when was there a feeling? Did someone approach you from abroad? When do you say to yourself, okay, it's the right time for me to expand abroad? When?
Never expand because of a feeling, and never expand because somebody just knocks on your door.
Okay.
You have to know that you have a market in that territory. So, for instance, the Middle East for us, Charlotte and I started 2 years ago. We went out there, we knew nobody, we met with all the press, and that's where you start. You have to create the hunger for your product. Never open anywhere and expect people to know who you are and why they should buy you. So you have to create the hunger through PR. You find your ambassadors or the people that will fly the flag for your product, and you create a market so that when you go in, because especially if you go into department stores, you're going to have to hit figures, and that responsibility is no one else's but yours. And so everybody will say, look, we'll support you, we'll do this, but ultimately it's up to us to get those sales. So when you open in a territory, you want to exceed those targets really quickly. So what happens is you get a bigger space, everybody starts to, flurry around you. So I think it's really important that you create the market for your product before you arrive there. Otherwise you could be sitting on a shelf. You can have pure gold, but if no one knows it's pure gold in that bottle, no one's going to buy it.